I had 8 brothers, 7 older and 1 9 years younger than me. So I didn't have any sisters. And then, of course, I didn't have any daughters, so I guess God was training me to raise boys. I loved my brothers so much, and I remember I'd sit down and write their names and their ages, and I always remember my oldest brother was 28 when I would write their names and their ages. My earliest memories of growing up would be that we walked to school, and I'd walk with probably 2 of my brothers by that time. The others were out. And we'd walk to school in the summer. We'd walk across this area, and I was scared of some of the bulls that were around there, but we managed okay, and nothing ever happened. They were never afraid. It was only me. Then when I was about 8, we moved into a German community. After that, Norwegian was put on the back burner. And everybody, most people were German. So I didn't have too much contact with Norwegian then for the rest of my life. I don't remember anyone saying, okay, now your chores are this for today. You just jumped in and helped where there was a need. And being the only daughter, I found lots of ways that I had to help my mother. And so I hear about girls that don't know how to do anything. Well, I did. Just automatically I learned how to do things from an early age. They had radios, but we didn't have telephones and no electricity until I was away at Bible college and came back home. During that time they got electricity. And so they were teasing me on the way home that there was something new at home. It was white and it was black and it was a refrigerator. And that's the first time that we had that. So I was 18 or so by that time. My father was a farmer, and he came up there from Iowa and settled in North Dakota there. And he loved it from day one to the end. He was always so proud he was from North Dakota. So we moved then when I was about 8 to near the Montana border. And so what we did was in Montana, so I never knew how I was from after that. And so then from then on, my school and church and most everything was in Montana. Before she was married, she worked in a hotel in this town of Schaefer. She used to say she had to have 3 pies ready by breakfast. She was a wonderful cook. And I never had seen eggs scrambled on top of the stove with a fork until I was grown up, because my mother didn't fix scrambled eggs like that. She was very professional in her cooking, but with such a large family, it was hard to get everything done, and I've often wondered how she did. Probably the most significant thing that happened to me was when all my brothers had to go off to war. I was just in high school. I was in the 8th grade, I think, when the war was declared. And having 8 brothers, that was a sitting problem. And one after another, they either saw it was going to happen and enlisted or were drafted. And my oldest brother enlisted and became a chaplain. And part of his training was at Harvard. And he was sent to Japan eventually. And was one of the, by then the war was over, but he was stationed in Yokohama. And then the other one was at Prairie, and he came home for a visit, and he was drafted. And his job was training dogs. Once he sent a dog home to my parents with all the name tags and everything. His name was Fritz, I remember yet. Then my second, he stayed in the States, and then my second brother, Norman, my third brother, Norman, was drafted, and he ended up in the Philippines, and he was wounded in Leyte. Then one day, a telegram came, and the postman brought it to our home and expressed the condolences of the neighborhood. And Mother was alone that day. And so she opened it after he left and read it, and she said, it said, "We regret to inform you that your son," and gave his name, "was slightly wounded in action." And so that evening when Dad came home, he said, "Was there any mail?" And she said, "Well, there's a telegram on the table." And my dad opened it and said, "Well, it could have been worse." She said, what do you mean? And it said slightly, and she thought it said seriously. And then my other brother was with General Patton's Third Army in Germany, and he came safely home too. And then another one was with the Navy in Hawaii, and he came safely home. And just before they all got home, my aunt had a dream that she saw 5 airplanes go out and only 4 come back. So I'm sure she prayed. I was just 11 years old when my 2 uncles, one was a Wesleyan Methodist and one was a Lutheran pastor, Lutheran Brethren, and my oldest brother, the chaplain, they had meetings in the gymnasium in the town where my grandparents lived, which was 50 miles away. So I went over and stayed with my grandparents and my girlfriend and went to the meetings, and I was saved one night there, clearly and definitely. I just went up to, I was so convicted of sin, and I was only 11, and I knew that I'd never asked Jesus to come into my heart. So after the meeting was over, I just left my girlfriend and went and found one of the singers who was there, and I told her I wanted to be saved. So she helped me. When my brother Clarence took me to the train the next day to go home, he gave me a Bible, and he said, tell Dad, be sure to tell Dad, because my dad wasn't a Christian. He was very, sometimes not too happy about all the rest of us that were getting so boomed for Christianity. And so he said, be sure to tell Dad. I never did, and one day I woke up and I'd taken a nap, and my dad was sitting beside me thumbing through my Bible, and I often used to think, if I had just said something, but I was afraid to, so I never did. But he came up to Prairie to my first year and was saved then.
For 15 years, I was a hell-bound Christian Presbyterian. There's 1,000 women in Chicago who prayed at Chicago CBMC. Pray for Memorial Day, that it doesn't rain, because there'll be 70,000 people in Soldiers Field. And I said, Mom, you are stupid. Just wait till the day and you get a weather report. Don't waste your time. I prayed for rain. Anyhow, that day our gang was downtown going to go to a burlesque show, and he didn't have enough money. So I see this sign, Gil Dodds, Olympic champion, will run a mile race at Soldiers Field, all seats free. Whoa, free of charge, youth. I'm a youth. Free, let's go. So I went. And I walked into there, 70,000 people, and deceptive advertising. They got 300 nurses singing Christian songs. What's this with Gil Dodds and the Olympics? He runs a mile race, and I says, wait a minute, this is spooky. This is what my mother had been praying for a whole year with 1,000 other mothers. It wouldn't rain. All of a sudden, Billy Graham gets up and gives a 3-minute testimony. Who's Billy Graham? I don't know. But Charles E. Fuller, the famous radio preacher, he gets up and he starts to preach, and I'm saying, Almighty God, if you are a God, send some rain. And it rained. It started to rain. He said, take your umbrellas down, take that newspaper off your head. Let's all together pray that God will stop the rain. Ha ha, I'm going to go home and make a fool out of my mother. And you know what happened? 70,000 people will tell you. Torrey Johnson and Bob Cook and Billy Graham will tell you, it stopped raining. I don't know what that guy has, but to do that, I want that power. And so, at the end, they give an invitation. At the Presbyterian Church, you don't give invitations. Every day and every way, we are becoming better and better. To make a donkey move, you don't kick him, you give him sugar. That was my theology.